Listen, if your mother had the abortion, we wouldn't have to sit through this stupid assembly.
Lady Bird is in many ways what chick flicks are trying to be for a mass audience. It's the perfect coming of age film, and one thing it did for me was to make me yearn for my hometown, which I miss so much. And then I was reminded of another great film which reminded me of my hometown because it was set in my hometown. I'm talking about Udaan. Udaan and Lady Bird can both be described as coming of age films in simple terms. They both take place at a point in the protagonist's life when they are just finishing high school or dropping out, as the case may be, and are set in sleepy cities, Sacramento and Jamshedpur, where the protagonist's biggest dream is to move to a big city like New York or Mumbai. But what I find most interesting in these films is the use of the locations where they are set. On one hand, we have Sacramento, which is a character in itself that is constantly in conflict with Christine. On the other hand, we have Jamshedpur, which is a location in its true sense. It has dark corners, places of comfort, and places where the soul can be set free for just one moment. So let's have a look at how the difference in treatment of a location affects story. The most important thread in both films is established right at the beginning: the relationship of the protagonist with a parent. On one hand, there is Christine, who has a loving relationship with her mother, and on the other hand, we have Rohan, who barely speaks to his controlling father. And as we proceed, we find out that Rohan's father is emotionally and physically abusive. What both parents have in common is that they don't want their kids to have aspirations that take them out of town. But Christine's mom is coming from a place of concern, afraid of the disappointment her daughter will face out in the world, while Rohan's father simply wants to control his son's life, the way his own father did.
हम ऐसी हरकत करते तो बाबूजी क्या करते हमारे साथ? स्टील के साथ साथ हमारी हड्डी भी गला देते भट्टी में.
We know that both these parents have had issues with their own parents, which makes them this way. Marion, Christine's mom, is overprotective because her own mother was a terrible parent.
My mother was an abusive alcoholic.
Bhairav Singh, Rohan's father, tried to make his father happy all his life and failed. So now he has become a much more violent version of his own father. Moving on, it is through the conversations Rohan and Christine have with their parents that we find out about their relationship with their hometowns. The first thing Christine says to her mother is,
Do you think I look like I'm from Sacramento?
we find out quickly afterwards that Christine hates being in Sacramento. As for Rohan, he seems to have spent too much time in a hostel and has to be reintroduced to the city where he was born. And we go on a tour of the city with Rohan and Bhairav. It's a rush tour during which Rohan is only introduced to the founding fathers of the city. Basically, he is forced into taking a short lesson about the city's traditions, the only thing that concerns Bhairav Singh. Rohan will have to discover the city on his own. Passing through the city itself is an important part of both films. In Lady Bird, it's driving through Sacramento, and in Udaan, it's running through Jamshedpur. Both parents express their dismay at their children not succeeding in these activities. We'll see how this aspect of the story progresses eventually. Meanwhile, there are all the other people who complete the lives of our protagonists. Christine has her best friend Julie, her mentors, and not to mention the rest of her family, especially her father, who supports her more than her mother does. For Rohan, the support system is his uncle and his motley group of college friends. Rohan's uncle is in many ways like Christine's father, supportive but powerless beyond a point. Now in Udaan, there is also the character of Arjun, but we'll discuss him in a while. The high points for both protagonists is spending time with the people they love. While Christine spends her time comparing her glamorous future life with her dull life in Sacramento, Rohan silently spends his time watching his very city and putting his thoughts on paper. They both have reasons to not go home. We are constantly aware of the fact that Christine and her mother care for each other deeply, while Rohan knows that he is nothing but a project to his father. Now, to experience actual growth, both protagonists have to be pushed into more of an adventure. This happens when they take opposite approaches to life. Christine, frustrated with her middle class small town identity, starts hanging out with those whom she considers cool kids, the ones who live in the most lavish houses in Sacramento. Rohan, on the other hand, is compelled to take care of Arjun in the hospital after a mysterious mishap. Rohan has had a bitter relationship with his brother so far. He hadn't even met Arjun or known about his existence till he got kicked out of school and ended up in Jamshedpur. But spending time with him in the hospital brings them closer. Arjun here, in many ways, represents the city of Jamshedpur itself. Arjun is like Rohan's hometown, a stranger reaching out to hold his hand. The only way our protagonists will find redemption is by accepting Sacramento and Arjun. We see that the process has already begun in the hospital as Rohan attends to Arjun by his bedside, and Ladybird writes a great essay about Sacramento.
You write about Sacramento so affectionately and with such care.
Well, I was just describing it.
Well, it comes across as love.
Sure. I guess I pay attention.
Don't you think maybe they are the same thing?
Soon enough, Christine realizes that her new friends are in fact too shallow for her, that sex isn't everything she thought it would be, and that no amount of partying can equal the time she spends with Julie and her family. Rohan too has made Arjun his priority, but things aren't fixed yet. There is yet another conflict that has been weighing down on them this whole time, which now reaches its boiling point. For Christine, this happens when her mother finds out that she has been waitlisted by a college in New York. Marion stops talking to Christine entirely. For Rohan, this happens when his uncle tries to convince his father not to marry again and offers to take care of Arjun if Bhairav can't.
क्या लिखा है? कचरा लिखा है। और तुम इसको बढ़ावा देना बंद करो। जो सपना तुम नहीं जी पाए, वो मेरे बेटे पे थोपना बंद करो।
Bhairav proceeds to burn Rohan's notebook, which contains most of his writing. At this point in both films, Christine's father and Rohan's uncle become completely powerless. Things can't get any worse, so they must get better. Now let's bring back the thread I mentioned earlier in the video, driving through Sacramento and running through Jamshedpur. Christine has left for New York without a reconciliation with her mother, while Rohan has just come home after spending a night in prison for destroying his dad's car. This is where Rohan decides to leave. He has a final altercation with Bhairav, after which Bhairav chases him all through town and almost catches him. But then, after having failed to outrun his father throughout the film, Rohan has finally escaped his clutches quite literally. But what becomes of Arjun? We'll see in a while. After running away, Rohan ends up at his uncle's house to give him a final heads up of what he's going to do, while Christine socializes and gets acquainted with New York. Rohan reminisces about his childhood and the time spent in his hometown, while Christine is clearly missing her mother and Sacramento. Rohan goes back to his father's house one last time and picks up Arjun. Christine makes a call home. As Rohan leaves with Arjun, Bhairav finds a letter from Rohan explaining himself. Christine leaves a voice message for her mother about driving through Sacramento. Throughout the film, we have only seen Christine's mother driving, but now we know that Christine too has made peace with Sacramento and with her mother by driving through the town she grew up in. Rohan coming back for Arjun and taking him under his wing is the same as Christine realizing her love for Sacramento. Rohan had rejected the city which only reminded him of his father until he found pieces of the city that he loved and took them away with him. Christine had rejected her hometown and her mother's wishes, but as she gets her way in the end, she realizes what she has left behind and even accepts her own name, which she had rejected earlier. The titles of both the films are about flight. And sure enough, these two films are about flying away from our parents' nests, these safe little hometowns. We may love our parents or hate them, and we may have a love-hate relationship with our hometowns, but we must take flight at some point. Sometimes this flight can free us from our shackles, and sometimes it can bring us closer to home.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. You may have noticed similarities between this video and a video by Lessons from a Screenplay which compares Black Swan with Whiplash. This video is inspired by that one, so if you haven't watched it, please go ahead and watch it. I'll leave the link in the description. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.